All right, Roto Grinders, here we are. SATURDAY Saturday night. I'm so excited I almost knocked over my lamp there. See, if you want to be in broadcasting, you have to have 3 points of light. Not quite the 1,000 points of light that George Bush Sr. had, but it's worth it. But speaking of conservatives, I have one mild-mannered person on the show with me to keep me level and reined in. Cards, the human computer, come on. Introduce yourself. Step forth and announce your presence with authority.
I think the technical team is going to need 3 points of light and about 3 cases of Mountain Dew for the next couple days because, judging by the forum thread this afternoon, it appears that there's going to be some bugs to work out here with the new site. But, hopefully it works, good in the end, and it does look a whole lot better on mobile. I was using it a little bit on my phone this afternoon, so... good luck to the guys, Riley and Cam and Cal, as they try to sort out all the little bugs with the new site, but thankfully we were able to get the show loaded here and should be good to go for the next hour.
Yep, we are scrambling madly behind the scenes. You know it's an all-hands-on-deck affair if I am involved in the technology, too. Now they're just keeping me back on
No wonder
the
the site's not working right, EMac.
They're keeping me just on content only, but there's a lot of moving parts and all these little things that we forgot that we built little workarounds for that we're getting it smooth, we're getting it streamlined. It's going to be a much, much better product. So please excuse our dust for a little while. But speaking of dust cards, you were kicking up quite a bit this week. I saw you at the top of, or in the midst of some leaderboards a couple different nights. But you know who's really on fire? Ray of Hope. Man, he's just been everywhere. And I think he won another seat to an event somewhere, it seemed like. Crazy night. Crazy week. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. Last night was really weird, low scoring. About 95 points was enough to cash in some GPPs on DraftKings last night, which is extremely bizarre. I was expecting to see a lot of my teams fall downward and still had an okay night over there on DraftKings. So it was just a low-scoring night. A lot of the guys that you expected to do well didn't, and sometimes that happens in baseball. So we have our typical Saturday night tonight where it seems like it's almost a full slate of night games these days outside of just a handful of afternoon games, and a lot of pitching on the docket tonight.
There is indeed. We have quite a bit. I wanted to give one other special shout-out. There's a new member of the Roto Grinders team, John, the new Chief Technology Officer. So what a time to be starting at your new company with a major overhaul going on.
Yeah, and Cal, apparently Riley is about to go insane, and Cal wants some McDonald's French fries. So somebody go get that man some fries, and that'll perk everyone's interest. A little French fries never hurt anyone when they're trying to get some things done. So the 2 cases of Mountain Dew and some McDonald's French fries, that'll be the diet of champions tonight.
It is. They're all set. They're all set. But let's dive on in here. We've got 49 minutes. We'll probably go a couple minutes extra because there are so many games to talk about, and there is a ton of pitching. I think we can talk about Yu Darvish. We can talk about Jeff Zamarja, or as I like to call him, Samardia, because I'm an idiot. Francisco Liriano, Garrett Richards. Anybody else that you got out there? You want to dive in on any one of these guys in particular?
I think that there's about 8 guys that are playable tonight. I think pretty clearly, though, I think Darvish and Hamels stick out as the top 2. I know Darvish was not that good against Houston the last time he faced them, but I'm not going to put really any stock into that. I mean, the strikeout potential that the guy carries is amazing, and even though he's 12K, with how light DraftKings has gone on the hitter prices these last few days, I'm not really sure what's going on with their pricing there. I mean, it got increasingly tougher for a while, and then everyone complained, and now it's extremely loose. I think there should be a little bit of middle ground there, but it really helps you make a team with some high-end players. So I think it's relatively easy to fit Darvish in your lineup, and a good matchup with Houston. I think he's going to be worth that 12K. Certainly capable of putting up 12 to 14 strikeouts. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. And then Hamels has just been on a tear lately. I'm going to try to pull up his 10-game log here on DraftKings. 24.8 his last time out, and that was with a loss. 34.4, 35.2, 32.8. the 3 starts before that. So that's 4 straight starts with 1 earned run or less, and he's averaging about 8 strikeouts a game in that span. Has a decent matchup against the Mets, who struggle against left-handed pitching. So with the way he's throwing right now, I like him as the number 2 option tonight, and I think those 2 guys, although they're the highest priced 2 guys, I think they'll be worth those price tags. So I would for sure try to get at least one of those guys, and it's not unfathomable to get a team with both of them. But Darvish is my number 1. Hamels is my number 2. I think you almost got to consider Garrett Richards the next best guy. He's got a better matchup than Greinke at home in a pitcher's park against an offense that's been struggling. I still like him over Liriano. I know Liriano has great stats since the All-Star break, and he's at home against San Diego. But these seem to be the starts where Francisco Liriano just falls apart, walks 5 guys, and comparatively speaking, for his 15.2 DraftKings points per game this year, I don't think he's worth $9,400 right now. I know it's a great matchup, and I think he's a decent GPP play, but it's really hard for me to trust Liriano in a cash game. I know it's a good matchup, but what do you think about that?
Well, as I'm just looking over at my initial placeholder lineup, I haven't gotten back to it since last night. I have paired Liriano and Samardzija on it. Interesting pricing going on here with the hitters. The low-end guys seem to have come up a little bit, and the top-end guys are kind of down a little bit. So I'm hoping we're going to see some differentiation, not really forced into any particular guy. I agree with you on Liriano. I'm going to run one set of my cash game lineups out there with him, but I'm going to probably go with Hamels and Samardzija for my other one. I think Darvish, you can do it with Darvish and Cole. I was just waiting to see what other punts appear tonight and didn't quite get done putting together that lineup. But again, different pricing, and I don't mind it because we all get the same pricing. So if things change around a little bit or there are shifts, that's okay, because those of us that are roto-grinders, which is everybody watching this show, should be able to adjust, adapt, and overcome and find an edge, no matter what the pricing is on any given day. But what was your take when you were looking at the prices this morning initially?
Well, I mean, it was kind of the same thing last night. I don't know what to make of it. I just think they're obviously making some changes to their algorithm, whether it's an influence from the Draft Street guys or not. I don't know. I just want it to be consistent. I mean, I know maybe there's a little bit of an edge to be had, but I prefer a bit of a tougher cap. And this is not that. With the way the top guys have come down, I mean, I think Cole Calhoun's like $3,400 tonight. To me, it just makes it a little too easy to make a team. But I don't think it alters the competitive balance any. It's just that everyone's teams, you'll see a lot higher percentage owned on the more expensive guys, simply because it's easier to fit them in. But I don't know as if it's that big of a deal, but as to my personal preference, I wish that they would go back kind of to what they had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we'll see. You never know. I don't mind it. But you are right. I'm looking at my lineup again. Robinson Cano is my most expensive player, and I have a lot of players on my lineup that are better than Robinson Cano. So now that you framed it that particular manner, yes, perhaps it was a little easy to put together a lineup today. That's all right, though. We'll survive. We will adapt and overcome. So back to the pitching, because that's clearly what we want to talk about. It's obvious that Darvish is the top player. Samardzija is my number 2. Garrett Richards is kind of tied with Cole Hamels. Now, I was looking at Hamels, and the more I look at his numbers, he has really recent performances crushed the Mets, the LOL Mets. I don't know. I'm on him. He's kind of my FanDuel anchor on my teams there, but I may have to. I don't know. I'm halfway nervous. It seems like every time I go all in on a pitcher, it hasn't worked out for me lately. So that's why I like DraftKings, because I can pair 2 different ones and I can do 2 different lineups and spread it across 3 pitchers. And bad things usually don't happen that way. I don't usually clear the board of everything, but I don't also lose everything.
Yeah, I'm struggling with where to go with it, because if you take let's say for your team, I mean, Liriano and Samardzija, you can take them and not really have to punt a hitter spot at all. And I don't know if that's what the intention is with the pricing. I mean, I think it's clear, though, where I think the draft street influence is coming in is that they're weighting recent performance. For example, if you look at third base, Pablo Sandoval's 5K and Josh Harrison's 4,600. They've been hitting relatively well recently. And, guys like Todd Frazier and Adrian Beltre that were at the top of the list all year, they've come down. So I just wish it was easier to tell what they were doing right now with that. Not that, and again, that's probably not something that gives much of an edge, but I'm just trying to figure out where they're going with this. And if it's to a little bit of a looser cap, then that's fine if that's what it's going to be the rest of the year. But then if it goes back to getting tough again, I don't know. But I think it's easy to put together a lineup. The upshot of it is you can pretty much roster any two pitchers you want. If you want to get Darvish and Hamels, you can. If you want to get Darvish and Liriano, you can. If you want to get Hamels and Samardzija, you can. And that makes it interesting on a night like tonight when there are 6 or 7 good options. Even a guy like James Paxton, who has displayed really good stuff when healthy, I think is a nice pick tonight against the White Sox.
All right, sorry. I now have Jason Nix and, wait for it, Yu Darvish. There we go. That was pretty easy. Still have a good lineup. There's a few games out there if you guys want to jump on those over on DraftKings, our sponsor site. I've got a couple still sitting out in that $5 and $10 range. Somebody took all my 20s, so that's okay. Let's talk anybody down deep. If you're going GPP, who do you want to roll the dice with? Or do you think we're not going to have to roll the dice too much because there's going to be enough? The ownership shouldn't really be more, outside of you, more than 30% on any particular pitcher?
Yeah, I mean, I still think you can because you can field an all-star lineup of hitters if you if you go cheap. Tim Hudson's really come down. I know he hasn't been that great lately, but he doesn't walk anybody. The Royals don't hit a lot of home runs, so it's hard to see them shelling Hudson. So I think he could be a decent dice roll as a number 2 guy at 7,100 against the Royals. If you're looking for a little more risk-reward, you could look at Tanner Roark for the Nats, your Nats tonight against those Braves who always like to strike out a lot. So I don't mind him kind of as a mid-tier play as well at that price.
Yeah, that was the one guy I'm looking at. Although I'm scrolling down here, I see that old Mike, is it Mike Fears? Mike Fears? Whatever, he's up from AAA. He, fastballer, straight fastball, but he's going to do a little spot start tonight. I don't know. Maybe there's your guy at 5,800. I mean, if you had him out there at 5,800, you could get literally every other player you wanted. We may have to do that. That could be our exercise in the moonshot. We shall see. All right, let's go on over here to catcher. I'm really looking at 2 catchers today, and they both happen to play for the same team. And I'm just calling up the lineups page to make sure they're in. But that would be Stephen Vaught and
Jaso's out.
So Jaso's out. So I'm looking at 1 catcher tonight, and that would be Stephen Vaught. Now, if you're going to look at somebody else, you might want to pay a little bit of a premium. Let's see if he's in the lineup, Devin Mesoraco, because guess who is back and pitching in the major leagues? Brad Penny.
Where'd he come from? I didn't even know he was pitching for anybody right now.
California Penal League.
Major league reference. You're not going to get that one past me.
All right. Yeah, I'm not so sure, but he hasn't pitched since 2012. We got Mesoraco bat and cleanup, so I like Mesoraco. I ride him up a lot of times on the weekends. I like to play him. He just seems to sit more often for kind of more random days than I would expect. It is a righty-righty matchup, but he does have quite a bit of power in same-handed matchups, and it's Brad Penny. He must not have been pitching anywhere very good if he was even pitching. So I don't mind that. So there are my 2 guys. Who are you looking at this evening?
Oh, you haven't mentioned him yet. I mean, we have to clear at least 30 minutes for JPR and Sibia talk here.
I love that, and I'm so sad I had to work because I wanted to troll the chat with Bills fan and Pepsi 7. I didn't get my chance. Hopefully somebody else jumped in there for me.
I will never forget one time when I was on with Pepsi and I kind of recommended Arancibia as a punt play, and I got the Boggs Light type rant from Pepsi about Arancibia, and I know how Bills fan feels about him. So. And now he's just gone on, for him, a tear over the last couple of weeks. He's not obviously going to hit for a high average, so he's kind of a boomer bust play. But he was hitting third last night and paid off his salary in the first inning there with a home run. He's got power, and against Feldman, I think he's an okay speculative play. I don't love him tonight, but it's just funny to see him keep hitting after the two Toronto fans that we have here on board. Obviously both don't care for him, so I think he's fine at 3,600. But I'm semi-kidding with the talk of him. I tweeted out earlier we have to talk about the best hitter in baseball, and that's JPR and Sibia. But I think he's okay as a GPP option tonight. Definitely prefer Mesoraco. I think the upside is definitely there with Mesoraco hitting cleanup, and obviously a tasty matchup against Brad Penny. So Mesoraco's my number one guy, certainly the guy I'll have the most exposure to this evening. We don't have the punt du jour of the week, Caleb Joseph, who hit his 5th home run in 6 games this afternoon against the Cardinals. The guy's on a tear for a number 9 hitter right now. So we can't look to him as a punt. I don't mind Vogt from the A's, and I don't mind Derek Norris either. I know it's a matchup against a righty, but it's kind of a non-prospect guy that has fairly decent numbers at AAA. I was looking him up a little bit earlier today, but certainly a tough matchup for his first major league start on the road. I'm going to try to call up his minor league stats again here real quick. I'll do that after I throw it back to you. But I think the A's have a decent matchup tonight. Their bats have been cold lately. But I think you could take a flyer on either one of those Oakland catchers this evening. I'll give the Minnesota pitcher's stats when we get to first base, and I'll just talk about that with Brandon Moss. I think Mike Zunino's a decent punt. Homered last night against Quintana, and he's 2,700, so he's probably the best bet of anybody under 3K tonight.
Yeah, Hector Noesi has incredible reverse splits. He gives up righties bat 100 points higher against him than lefties do. And lefties are pretty good against him also. So, yeah, Zunino, you can definitely get with that one. Here's a cheapie for you. Tuffy Goswitch, 2.2. He's going against Jorge De La Rosa. Batting 6th in Arizona. That's not a bad one. Plus, he's got that crazy mustache hair combination. He looks cool. So that's worth a couple extra points.
That's worth some fantasy points right there.
I'm trying to call up his player card, but I can't because it's technologically involved, and it's me. So, all right, I think that handles most of the catchers. I kind of like the Oakland guys, Mesoraco if you're going to pay, and then if you want to go cheaper, Zunino's not a bad call at all against Noesi. All right, let's talk about first base. Speaking of first base, Chris Crush Davis, 3 home runs in his last 4 games. I haven't seen what he's done today, but is he back? And can he help out Brandon Moss with whatever he's rediscovered?
Yeah, they're more similar than you'd like to think. I said last night on the show with Dean that you'd win a lot of money if you bet people that an over-under on Brandon Moss's batting average against right-handed pitchers. Coming into last night's game, he was only hitting .244 against righties on the year. And that's for a guy that has a reputation of hitting right-handed pitching really well. I think the fade might work on DraftKings again tonight. He was very highly owned last night. If you want to take that chance, Trevor May, I've called up his stats. So he was drafted by, the Phillies in 2008 in the 4th round. Pitched for the Phillies for a while, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012. Never made it above AA ball, and his ERA at the AA level was 4.87. Then got traded to the Twins, where he pitched in AA last year with a 4.51 ERA, and he's pitched in AAA this year. Has an ERA just under 3, pretty solid strikeout rate, but he walks 3.5 batters per 9 innings. And that's actually his career best. In 2011, he walked 4.1 batters per 9 innings. In 2012, 4.7 batters per 9 innings. And last year, an even 4 batters per 9 innings. So it's clear that this kid sometimes struggles with his command. He's 24 years old, and now he's making his major league debut on the road against a very patient offense in Oakland. I think that's a key factor. Because Oakland loves to draw walks, And I think it's a nightmare matchup for this guy to make his first major league start with the way that his splits line up and the fact that he has control problems. So that's what worries me about fading Brandon Moss, because you know he's going to be highly owned, but he's been in such a horrific slump that who knows if this will even be enough to break him out of it. It's a matter of which side you believe there. He's super cheap. I mean, for his upside in this matchup, I don't know. I think the fade might be worth it in GPPs, but for cash games, I think he's a really solid pick. So Brandon Moss will definitely be a guy that I have quite a bit of exposure to tonight, because first base really isn't that deep today. You don't have a single option on the board above $4,500. We talk about the change in pricing. Look at the drop in price on Jose Abreu, down to $4,400. If you're not on Paxton for Seattle tonight, I think that's almost a must for him at that price. Albert Pujols down to $4,200 against a gas can and Clay Buchholz, who's given up 7 runs in each of his last 2 starts. Those are the 2 guys I like the most that are a little bit more expensive than Brandon Moss. If you want to go cheaper, I don't mind the Seattle guys. They're both cheap. Lomo and Kendrys Morales going up against Noesi. I think they're solid for their prices. And Casey McGee is still down there at $2,700 on DraftKings. Good matchup against Alfredo Simon, whose advanced metrics really support some decline in his numbers for the rest of the year. So that's kind of where I'm looking at first tonight.
Yeah, I at that price, yes, Hits McGee is definitely in play. He only has 2 home runs on the season.
He was part of the final vote, though. He was almost an all-star.
Well, yay. I was trying to figure out how to find a list of hitters with home runs this season, or pardon me, pitchers with home runs this season, because one of the pitchers has to have 2 home runs, right?
Well, Travis Wood for sure. I bet Travis Wood
got like
has
4.
more than 2.
Yeah, there we go. So that was kind of my comparison. I couldn't quite work him into a write-up with that, but at 2.3, yeah, I just didn't scroll down far enough. But you're missing somebody that hails from your neck of the woods in St. Louis, signed to a gigantic contract playing out there in the city of brotherly love, Ryan BVP Howard going against Dylan Gee. As I know it's G, but I like saying Gee. It's more fun. But think about this. 9 for 20, not 1, not 2, not 3, 6. 6 home runs in those 9 hits. What do you say?
Is that enough to make you consider BVP? I mean, where do you fall on the BVP fence generally?
It's an indicator. It's right there with birthdays and bobbleheads for me. But that much, 6 home runs in 20 at bats. I got to look at it. Plus, we always look to Ryan Howard in lefty-righty matchups. If you're hoping he's gone through, one of his usual droughts, his price is usually down a bit. So that's how he popped on my radar. I look at him and then I usually laugh and move on. But this morning, he was at the top of the BVP list, so I had to take note of that. It's just impressive. So that's going to sway me. I like him. He's 3,200 over there on FanDuel. He's actually in my DraftKings lineup right now. Also, so there we go. Play bingo or what is it called? Concentration. Uncover who I'm playing tonight in my cash games. But
Travis Wood has 3 home runs, by the way, so he is safely in front of Hits McGee.
All right, there we go. So Ryan Howard. What about Justin Morneau?
I think he could be sneaky tonight. I love playing batters in Arizona. I do, because it's a nice hitter's park, and people don't recognize it as much as they do Coors Field. So I really like playing bats in Arizona. The problem is Arizona's lineup is feeble right now. Just feeble. It's really bad. So you got them out of the equation. So you're down to the Rockies, and they're still not that cheap. But I do like Morneau batting third against Cahill. Cahill's been up and down. He's really not that great, so he's definitely a pitcher you can target some bats against. Don't know if I'll go with the Rockies stack tonight with how their bats are still comparatively expensive to some other teams, but I don't mind a piece here or there. And Morneau certainly at 4,200 batting third against Cahill. I think that's a nice matchup.
All right. What about Adrian Gonzalez? As I'm looking on DraftKings, he's actually $100 cheaper than Ryan Howard.
I'd rather have Howard. I know Mike Fiers is a decent pitcher, that you could target some bats against, but I really don't like the way Gonzalez has been swinging the bat this year. He's just not having a really good season.
All right, and then my screen's not working. But Mike Carp, I wanted to see.
He's batting third for Texas tonight.
When did he? Because I was confused by that, and I thought this was one of our lineups page thing. When did he move from Boston, or have I just?
Boston just released him, and then he got picked up by Texas for some help against right-handed pitching. I mean, he's batting 198 on the year, so I wouldn't expect miracles, but he is hitting third against Feldman. It's a decent matchup. I do have some shares of him tonight.
All right, because for some reason I thought, is this the same guy? Has he been around so long? This is Mike Carp Jr.? Is it? I don't know. But there's your
another fish in the pond, if you will.
Yeah, there's your punt du jour for that. Good one. Good one. You hooked me on that one, Cards.
All right, that's enough fish references.
Okay, that sounds good. The scales are unbalanced, but we'll keep moving on. Down to second base.
Man, I can never one-up you on those. I can never. You got me on the. You got me hook, line, and sinker on that one. So if we go to second base, you mentioned Cano earlier in the show. Like him against Noesi tonight. I know Noesi has some reverse splits, but the fun can be had by everyone against Hector Noesi. And if he's bad, you'll know it right away. A couple starts ago, the Tigers put up a 6 spot in the first inning against him. Seattle hasn't been that bad with the bats lately. They did a decent job against Quintana last night. They scored 13 runs the night before. So I like Cano. I know the price is high comparatively with the drop that some other hitters have had at DraftKings. But I think he's clearly your top option with Altuve a little bit banged up and out of the lineup tonight. I don't really like a ton of the other top options there at second base, so I think Cano is definitely the guy you're rolling with anywhere near the top. If you want to target a bat against Mike Fiers, I think D. Gordon could be a nice play, although he's been in a bit of a slump himself. On DraftKings, you do get the multi-position eligibility for Kyle Seager in a similar boat to Cano, and he's also $1,000 cheaper. So if you can't quite afford Cano, you could put Seager in at second base if you want to. I mentioned targeting bats in Arizona. Really the only Diamondbacks bat you can count on for consistent production against left-handed pitching right now is Aaron Hill. I believe he's back in there tonight, and I think he's hitting cleanup. So I like him at 3,900 if you want to go that route. Really not a ton to love at the low end, except my favorite punt play of the night is second base and outfield eligible on DraftKings. I am not a fan of Alfredo Simon. If you look at his xFIP and his strikeout to walk rate, strikeouts per 9 innings, they really suggest a lot of regression from that guy. He just doesn't blow anybody away. I know he's got a solid ERA. He's already exceeded his career high in innings. I think that'll start to get to him down the stretch. So I like some of the Marlins batters tonight. Donovan Solano is batting second for Miami tonight, and he's just $2,300 over there on DraftKings. So if you're looking to go cheap at second base, he's my guy tonight.
All right, I'm poking around here. What about Utley taking on Dylan G?
He's a guy. Dylan G's a guy who traditionally really struggles against left-handed bats, and that's good if you're targeting Phillies. So I think guys like Rollins, Howard, and Utley could be nice plays tonight. And people won't be on them. The Phillies are just never that highly owned, their bats, and they haven't been hitting that poorly of late. I know they were disappointing last night against Cologne, but I think he's a decent play tonight as well.
And then the one guy that I do have on a couple lineups where I do not have Cano is Tommy La Stella, because he is batting up near the top of the order and he is relatively cheap. Gets a lefty-righty matchup tonight against Tanner Roark. We like him. And then I had called up one other guy I wanted to ask you about, and darn these slow things. Here we go. Scooter Jeanette batting fifth.
I like him in the 5-hole and against a righty, but it's tough to target him against Greinke. But he's only $3K. I mean, it's an interesting contrarian play because I like the price. I like where he's hitting in the batting order. He's got great splits against righties. Just hard to trust a hitter against Greinke. So that's kind of the dilemma there. I'm not on him tonight, but I think he makes a nice GPP option if you want to.
And then, Aaron Hill batting fifth. Yeah. Trombone.
Oh, okay. Well, I like Trumbo too, but Hill and Trumbo, I think those are the only two bats you can really count on for Arizona.
All right, so that's about it. There's a lot of choices out there at second base. Cano, really the one you want to zero in on, and then his name escapes me. Solano is your cheap 2.3 punt. Let's talk at the hot corner. What do we got here?
Yeah, I'm attempting at the moment, since it takes up so much CPU on the computer, I'm attempting to pull up the Atlanta radar on my phone because I know there was an issue with a rain delay there last night, and it looks like there's some rain in the Atlanta area tonight. So I'm going to try to get a weather update. I don't think Kevin has posted in the forums today. So I'm going to check the radar in Atlanta. That appears to be the only spot of concern tonight in terms of weather. It just hit me when you mentioned Tommy La Stella. I mentioned Tanner Rourke earlier in the show, so I'll check that out here in a minute.
All right.
But as far as third base, you want me to go through third base here?
Yep, because I'm looking at some premium ones. Seager, which you kind of mentioned at second base. I'm looking at Frazier going against Alfredo Simon. I think he's probably the top play. And then Adrian Beltre. Is there enough protection in the lineup? Jim Aducci, batting fifth. Is he going to provide any coverage for Adrian, or are they just going to walk Adrian tonight?
Yeah, that's the big question. I mean, and Dean and I discussed that quite a bit last night, and Beltre didn't have any walks. They pitched to him all 4 times. He's 1 for 4, so I wouldn't worry about him not getting pitched to. I really like the price tag. I know he's better against lefties, but he actually has, I believe, 13 of his 16 home runs have come against righties this year, so certainly don't mind him tonight, especially at the decreased price tag that he has compared to some other guys. Arenado's in play, not on the right side of his splits, but a decent matchup against Cahill. Not on the other guys at the top. Sandoval and Harrison I just think are a bit too expensive. Donaldson I never take against a right-handed pitcher. So I'd be down to the guy that you mentioned, Frazier, against Brad Penny. Certainly a guy that could get lit up tonight. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Reds get 10 runs tonight, or I wouldn't be surprised with their recently weakened lineup if Penny pitches a decent game against them, because I know somebody mentioned in the chat earlier that Penny's minor league numbers are actually decent this year. I'm not going to put a ton of stock into that. I mean, it's been 2 years since the guy's pitched at the big league level, and he really wasn't that good his last couple seasons in the majors. So I'm not putting any stock in the minor league numbers until he puts a couple starts together, for the Marlins to see what kind of pitcher he can still be. So with that, I'll still target some Reds bats tonight. Definitely like Frazier, kind of right there with Beltre as the guys that I'll have, on the most of my teams tonight. David Wright, his price is really cheap. Not a guy I'm on tonight, but against Cole Hamels, I mean, if you're a BVP believer, David Wright is another one of those big BVP guys. Has really, really good numbers in a really, really extended sample size against Cole Hamels. So you can go there if you want to. Otherwise, there's guys down on the cheap tonight on DraftKings. Jason Nix is in there for the Pirates tonight, and Michael Martinez is in there for the Pirates. They're batting 7 and 8, but Nix is only 2K, and Michael Martinez to the new floor on DraftKings, which has apparently been lowered from 2K to 1.7K. So you can throw a total punt in there and basically get anybody else you want on your roster if you want to go cheap at third base tonight. And Casey McGee is third base eligible too if you want to use him there.
He is, and I think I was saying Frazier against Simone. I meant to say that, it should have been Penny. And I was looking, in addition to Hits McGee, what about Garrett Jones? Or is there? I mean, pricing tonight. There's.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett Jones is a little bit more expensive, but certainly he's got a bit more pop than McGee does.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Shortstop, outfield, we'll do a pick 5. We'll do a rapid fire max. We'll have all the fun. Quick, name me a professional bass fisherman.
Next.
Oh, Kevin Van Dam. Come on. I thought you'd know that one.
No,
So we found a sport that I may know one player and you don't know any. EMac, chalk it up.
I can give you more hot dog eating contest winners than I can pro bass fishermen. That I would have never gotten one of those.
Just as a side note, have you ever seen their weigh-ins? They pull them in with their boats on a trailer inside. It's this big to do. The things you'll watch when there's a rain delay on ESPN.
Yeah. Well, the Cardinals always put on like a kids show when they're in a rain delay, so the rain delay programming is pretty sad. To me, the weather looks okay in Atlanta. It looks like a 40% chance of rain. Might worry me a little bit if I was on a pitcher, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't fade the hitters just because of the weather if that was a concern of yours.
All right, shortstop. Jordy Mercer versus a lefty. That's a good one. Chris Taylor, cheap on a few sites. Don't mind him against no AC if he's in the lineup. And Eric Ibar. That's really all that I'm looking at. I'm not paying for a shortstop tonight. Mercer is as much as I'm paying, and he's relatively cheap.
Yeah, definitely don't mind Mercer against the lefty. I believe he's batting second again tonight. I do really like Ibar as a left-handed hitter against Buchholz. You don't have to be scared of Clay Buchholz anymore. It doesn't throw hard, and I read something that after the trades of Lackey and Lester that Buchholz is the de facto ace for the Red Sox, and I almost laughed because, I mean, he's got they're just horrid numbers on the year. Right? Since coming back from the DL, those 2 straight starts with 7 runs allowed, you definitely don't have to shy away from taking bats against him. So Ibar, I know he doesn't have the most pop, not the most glamorous option, but he is in a dangerous offense when they get things going. So I like him tonight for that $3,500 price tag. And Mercer at $3,600. Those are some nice mid-range options. Kind of lumped Jimmy Rollins in there a little bit earlier when we were talking about the left-handed bats against Dylan G. So I think you can look to him tonight if you want to. Don't mind Billy Hamilton against Brad Penny. If he gets on, you're likely to see a couple of stolen bases. He hasn't pitched in the big leagues in a couple of years. But if I remember correctly, and I could be thinking of somebody else, but if my memory serves me correctly, I think Brad Penny is horrible at holding on opposing base runners. And I know he's really slow to the plate. So if Billy Hamilton gets on, be prepared for like a 10-pitch at bat. If anybody in the chat actually knows that from experience with Brad Penny or can confirm or deny that, I'm pretty sure that Brad Penny's bad at holding runners on, and that's a big factor when it comes to rostering Billy Hamilton because that's where you get his upside is with his stolen bases. So I don't mind him if you're paying tonight. I think I'd rather go a little bit cheaper, but I really don't mind him tonight. The shortstop pool is pretty thin when it comes to decent options, and then some of those punts that we mentioned at other positions are also multi-position eligible on DraftKings. Jason Nix, for example. You talked about Chris Taylor already. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got at shortstop tonight.
All right. Slav was asking about NASCAR drivers. Jimmy Johnson. That's all we need to know. Jimmy Johnson. I think I could name more NASCAR drivers than cars.
Oh, yeah, I could name a lot of my family likes NASCAR. I mean, not diehards or anything, but it'll be on TVs when we go to family gatherings sometimes. So I could name you I could do fairly well there.
All right. Well, we'll have to try that. I think the best Roto-Grinder host for NASCAR is Stevie. I think he knows everybody in the nationwide circuit and the big circuit, whatever they call it, Sprint Cup or whatever it is these days. All right, outfielders. Ready, set, go. There's a few people I want to key in on. I'm going back to that Miami game. Yelich, lefty-righty matchup. Stanton's just awesome. Puig, 3,700 over there on FanDuel. Do not sleep on that price there. Matt Kemp has some really good numbers this year for his platoon splits with 380 WOBA, 860 OPS, and 30 extra base hits against righties. I think Josh Harrison is very, very good option both either at third or outfield on DraftKings because Eric Stoltz probably won't make it out of the fifth inning. Trumbo is another guy I'm looking at. So those are my core plays. And then, of course, Mike Trout because it wouldn't be a fishing show without talking about Mike Trout.
Boy, we've just I just found an article here. I swear it just said Carl Crawford stole 6 bases in a game against Brad Penny. I'm determined to figure out now how good Brad Penny is at holding runners on. One of my favorite outfield plays tonight, and this is going to be kind of sneaky. You mentioned it earlier with the reverse splits. Austin Jackson for the Mariners. I really like him tonight. At the top of that order against a pitcher that really struggles against right-handed bats. Really nice price tag, too, at $3,600. At that same price tag, if you want to take the hitter hitting right behind him, Dustin Ackley's been very hot of late. Seems strange to recommend some Mariners bats, but I definitely like teams going against Hector Noesi, and they're not all that expensive. So those two guys will be on a good majority of my lineups tonight. Cole Calhoun still too cheap on DraftKings, 3,400. So fire him up at will over there if you can get aboard that train. You mentioned Trumbo, I like him. Josh Hamilton. Definitely some guys kind of in that 3,500 to 4,500 price tag on DraftKings that you can roster pretty confidently. If you want some GPP contrarian plays, if you want to go against Greinke, Carlos Gomez, his price is still down on DraftKings. Risky, but the upside is there. In the same boat, I'd put Yoenis Cespedes against Garrett Richards. For all that Garrett Richards has been, and he's been great for the better part of a couple months, he still has those starts where he just doesn't have it. So if you want to go a completely contrarian $2 moonshot off the radar stack, Boston will be completely underowned. Nobody will have their bats tonight. I'm not advocating it in mass or in anything of high dollar consequences because I do like Richards tonight. But he had that one start against the A's a couple months ago where he only got one out. And sometimes he had a horrible start against Houston as well. So sometimes he just doesn't have it. Who knows? You never know when that's going to happen. Don't mind Jay Bruce against Brad Penny. We've thrown in a whole bunch of those Reds bats tonight. Those are kind
Stack
of
the Reds. That's what we're saying without saying it. Stack the Reds.
Those are kind of the low to or the mid to high dollar plays that I like this evening. There are some cheaper options that we've already discussed at other positions, like Brandon Moss. His price has come down. We mentioned Mike Karp earlier. I mentioned Donovan Solano at second base. Those are all guys that are outfield eligible as well on DraftKings. That's kind of where I go for my cheap plays. Put them in the outfield if you're taking a high dollar play at some other position. Otherwise, I think we covered most of it.
Yeah, the only other ones I wanted to throw out there were Chu. I like him leading off at 3,700. And then there was one other guy. The Nats are good. They're a little pricey on DraftKings compared to everybody else, so I'm going to stay away from them, but I don't mind them going against the Orangutan this evening. And then, dare we do it? I'm looking to see if he's in the lineup. He's not. Okay, never mind.
Then no.
I don't
know who you were looking at, but no.
No, we can't. But Diane Viciedo?
Yeah, I mean...
Cleanup. Paxton, a little sketchy from time to time.
He has a good history against left-handed pitching. It really hasn't borne out this year, but he did homer against Iwakuma last night. He is swinging it pretty well right now, so I can see that.
All right. I'm calling up. If there's anything else you want to cover, while I type and talk at the same time, call up the Star Street Pick 5 and the Rapid Fire Max. I cleared all my passwords and stuff, so I've got to remember what they all are here.
Guys asking about Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper?
Bryce Harper is 21 years old. People forget that. 21. How good at you were performing under pressure when you were 21?
I'm not an athlete, and that would probably have just made it worse. People ask about the Nats. How about the streak that Denard Spam is on? We didn't mention him. The price tag is high for me, and he doesn't have a ton of upside because he's not a home run guy. But, boy, he's on fire right now.
Yeah, he's been on base a ton. I think he's on pace for potentially 35 or 40 double. It's some pretty big number. And when he and Anthony Rendon both get a hit in the same game, the Nationals win 80% of the time.
I mean, isn't that one of those stats that's kind of... I don't put a whole lot of stock into those types of stats.
I don't either, but it's fun to say. It's sort of like saying such and such, when the running back runs for 100 yards, they're 20-1. Well, no kidding. They had the ball. That's why
you see it in baseball all the time. I mean, the A's are 80-2 when leading after 8 innings. Well, way to go out on a limb there, and their closer must not suck. But I don't know. Weird stats like that, they're fun. But If Matt Carpenter and Colton Wong get a hit in the same game, Cardinals have probably got a pretty good record too. But that is, you said just a hit, right? Not not multiple hits. Yeah.
Nope, just each get a hit. That's it.
All right. I think that carries more weight.
Yeah, well, plus with 3.5, 4-hour broadcasts, you got a lot of time to talk about the various shades of paint that are drying in front of you at a baseball game. Okay, let's go with the pick 5. Are you ready, Cards?
I am ready.
Yasiel Puig, Jose Abreu. I'm going Puig.
I'll take Puig tonight as well. Put some stock into Paxton. He's a good young pitcher for the Mariners.
All right, Justin Morneau, Brandon Moss. I'm going Morneau.
I'll take Morneau as well. Pretty hard to bank on Moss right now in a format like that.
Adrian Beltre, Kyle Seager. Now that's a tough one. Seager really good in lefty-righty matchups, but no ACS reverse splits. Seager really good at home. He's one of the Mariners that just he cranks it up. I think it's at home batting average is 50 points higher than his road batting average. And then you got Adrian Beltre. Adrian Beltre is really, really good. Scott Feldman, 9 Ks in his last 27 innings. So
Feldman doesn't miss bats. Definitely Beltre for me.
I'm leaning that way too. Jay Bruce, Cole Calhoun. Talk to me about Cole Calhoun. He's been on everybody's radar the last 2 nights.
Well, he really has, and with his price being so cheap now, I think that's what makes him so attractive. The price tag on DraftKings is just it's a bit light for him being the leadoff hitter and a guy that hits in front of Mike Trout and Albert Pujols. So that gives him some upside in and of itself. He can steal a base. He's good against right-handed pitching, but the price is mainly what makes him, gives him the upside there. I still got to take Jay Bruce. I mean, it's Brad Penny, and Bruce is more expensive on every site for a reason. So hard to go against Jay Bruce there.
All right, and we're going back to pitchers for this one. Samardzija, Liriano.
Oh man. Here's your classic case of upside versus safety. But I'll take Liriano. I'm not on Samardzija tonight. I don't really like the way he's been throwing since he's been traded to Oakland. The strikeouts aren't there. I know it's a good matchup against Minnesota, and he's at home. Minnesota got to Scott Kazmir late last night. They have a few hitters that are decent against lefties. Not that I think Samardzija is a horrible play tonight. I think he's a decent play for cash games. Normally in these type of games we say you look for the higher floor. Clearly the higher floor rides with Samardzija, but I find it hard to envision Liriano getting totally blown up by the Padres. Probably come back to bite me because I'm going against what I usually say the strategy should be in something like this, but I'll take Liriano here and cross my fingers.
It's the matchup. I can't ignore the fact that he's going against the Friars tonight. I can't ignore that. So, to recap it, Puig, Morneau, Beltre, Bruce, Liriano, we're pretty well in agreement on all of these, so maybe this is one of those nights to roll out there for a pick 5 correct instead of just a 3 to win, 3 to double your money. So we'll play for 15 to win 300. That'll be fun.
The people, I know we don't have a ticker tonight, but the people want top stacks because that's kind of become a thing. So I'll let you go with your top stacks first.
Oh, God, I never stack. I'm not into it. But if you insist,
boy, I never either, EMac. I never do anything like that.
No, I'm just saying. I don't think with I'm not against it. I just don't think with that kind of a lens. I've kind of converted more to cash game in single entry lineups into GPPs. I don't know why. That's not what I used to do, but it's what I'm doing now. Back to that, Mariners definitely against the OAC. The Reds are probably right up there with them, and those are my 2 stacks. I'm only looking at 2 tonight.
Yeah, you took 2 of mine. I like both of those teams. Obviously, we've kind of been in agreement on those 2 teams for most of the show. So I'll throw a couple different ones out there. I like the Marlins actually on the other side of that game. Mentioned I'm not a big fan of Simon. I know the Marlins lineup isn't imposing, but they can throw up some runs. They can surprise you from time to time. So I like the Marlins tonight, and I'll take Oakland as my second stack simply because of May's struggles with walks. I can't stress enough how how intrigued I am to see how that plays out against the A's, who have a reputation of being extremely patient hitters. Surely they know that this guy has struggled with command in the minors and is making his first major league start. So I wouldn't be surprised if the A's offense continue to struggle, and I wouldn't be surprised if the A's offense put up a whole bunch of runs tonight, because that's what the A's do. They just put up 10 runs. Random night, here's 10 runs and 4 homers. So I like the two that you mentioned for sure, Cincinnati and Seattle. I think the Marlins and A's are decent options as well. Those would be, in all honesty, my top 4.
All right, and Denard Span, love him. He's a great leadoff hitter. He doesn't have a lot of power. He's quick on the bases. He hits well in lefty-lefty situations. He's great in lefty-righty situations. He plays phenomenal defense, and he has game-saving home run catches, to his credit. Love Denard Span. He's just not usually a DFS player. His upside's not there, but he is one hell of a real baseball player. All right, now that we've got that out of my system, a little natitude there for you, Cards. Are you ready for a draft day rapid fire max?
Sure.
Puig or Giancarlo Stanton?
I'll take Stanton. I like Puig tonight, but I still think he's a notch below Stanton.
Concur. Shin-Soo Choo? Brandon Moss. Ooh, I'm going with Choo.
Those are two of the most slumping hitters in the league. Yeah, I like the matchup against Feldman. I'll take Choo.
Okay. Starling Marte, we did not mention him. And D. Gordon, another guy we didn't talk about. I'm going to go with... Marte's pretty good against lefties, is he not?
Yeah, he is.
I think I'll go with Marte. Gordon, though, stealing base against Bears. I'm still on
Yeah,
Marte.
I'll take D. Gordon there. Call that one a toss-up.
All right. Yelich or Hamilton? Ooh, good one.
Yeah,
I'm so biased to Yelich. I know you're the banner carrier for Billy Hamilton these days.
It's Billy Hamilton? I didn't know if it was Billy
Hamilton.
Hamilton or Josh Hamilton. I guess I was thinking Josh Hamilton there. So it's Billy, huh?
Yep. Billy.
Like his stolen base upside against Brad Penny. Again, you usually go to floor here. I'll take Yelich, I guess. This is a hard one. I prefer the other one.
Yeah, I like Yelich also. And then David Wright, who has done nothing, but he can hit Cole Hamels very well, or Chase Utley.
I'll take Utley there.
I'll take Utley.
We'll throw the BVP out the window. Hamels is pitching really well right now.
Yeah, all right. So we've got Stanton, Choo, but we're on the fence with Moss. I got Marte, you got Gordon, we're on the fence there. Yelich, Hamilton, kind of a coin flip, and then we like Utley. So Scott did a good job on these tonight.
That's tough.
Made them really close together. So good job by him. All right, I think that's about it. Top cash game pitchers, I saw that come out there. Darvish, obviously, but also look at Cole Hamels. Don't lose sight of that. Those are the two guys I think we're highest on.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, I think that's about it. I'm just scrolling. Let's do a couple quick questions here. Freeman and Viciedo or Frazier and Morales for the Mariners? I'm going to go Freeman.
I'll take the second one. I think that's fairly close. I like the matchup for those two guys tonight.
Yeah, I like Frazier. Hamels and Carp or Liriano and Pujols. DraftKings cash games.
So cash game, you got to take Hamels. You got to take Hamels, in my opinion. I cannot trust Francisco Liriano in a cash game. I just can't. It's too risky. I don't know. I don't know where to fall on Francisco Liriano. I mean, every time we just expect this guy to come out and dominate, these are the starts where he just stinks, and I'm just nervous about it. I could pay totally for not being on him in cash games. I think he's a great GPP play tonight, but I just feel that you get a more warm, fuzzy feeling going into a start if you have a Yu Darvish or a Cole Hamels rostered as opposed to Francisco Liriano. Because don't lie, if you're rostering Francisco Liriano tonight, be honest, even in the chat, if you have Francisco Liriano on your lineup right now, even though it's a matchup at home against the Padres, you would be lying if you told me you weren't nervous about it. Because he is unpredictable.
Oh, it's true. The pucker factor is going to be at 11.
The pucker factor.
There's no way around that, but it is what it is. Last one, Eric Ibar, Elvis Andrus. First names to start with an E, last names to start with an A. I'm going with Ibar.
I'll take Ibar too. I like the matchup tonight. Andrus a little bit weaker against right-handed pitching.
All right. With that, Roto Grinders, we are off. There are 30 minutes till game time. There is some slight overlay brewing, but not as much these days on DraftKings. I think we can safely say that the majority of these contests are going to fill. I do thoroughly enjoy the cash games. I still got a couple more out there at the $5 and $10. So if you want to play me and then tease me on Twitter, go ahead and pick some of those up. You probably already know half the lineup I'm playing. Thank you, DraftKings, for being a great sponsor of the show. Thank you, Cards, for being the human computer. Thank you, Roto Grinders, for getting the video up just in time for our show. Again, pardon our dust. We will be working out all the kinks this weekend and should be up and running with all cylinders on Monday. So with that, don't forget to tune in tomorrow, 11:30, for another episode of Grinders Live. Good luck, gamers.